Hi, everybody. Mark from Cinemondo here in my living room, not my usual space. My wife is, I had a head cold, and my wife now has it. And you might hear me coughing. I'll mute the mic if I do cough. But I did want to talk about uh, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga that uh, has come out recently. And there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. And I wanted to get my 2 cents out about the film and about maybe the film industry. Um, Number one, truth be told, Mad Max is probably my favorite movie series. And George Miller, one of my very favorite directors. I think he directs action like no other director, better than anybody else. And I'm talking about Spielberg, Cameron, Christopher Nolan. I feel he's number one. So know that going in, I have this love for this series and for this filmmaker. When I saw Mad Max in 1980, I was blown away. I didn't know what I watched. I said, "This is this weird, interesting world." It was also dubbed in American. It was on HBO, and it was just the movie just had an odd vibe, an odd feeling, and I fell in love with it. Then Road Warrior blew me away in a different way, and even more profound way. I said, I'm seeing stuff that I haven't seen before. So I was just in love with it. Then Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome came out, and that was by far my least favorite of the Mad Max films because it was the most mainstream, not just because I had Tina Turner in it, but it was co-directed by George Miller and George Ogilvy, and I just think it lost its edge and became this PG-13 sort of corny sort of film that it just didn't work for me. And I said, wait, they've lost that edge that made the first two movies so interesting and so vital to me. And also, the edge also means it was just off kilter. It didn't seem like every other action film. There was weird characters, weird filming techniques, weird dialogue, weird names. That was kind of gone in the third one. It became more sort of mainstream. Then we had the 30-year break between 1985 and 2015. Incredibly, George Miller at age 70 comes back with Fury Road, with Tom Hardy as Max, no more Mel Gibson, and Charlize Theron as Furiosa. And it took everybody by surprise. It was just a fantastic action film, a tight 2-hour, 48-hour experience. So the whole movie takes place in 2 days. You're sort of dropped right into this world, and you have to sort of figure out, well, what's the Bullet Farm? Who's Immortan Joe? What's going on here? Who's Furiosa? Is she good, bad? Tom Hardy is not talking in the first 20 minutes as usual. He has only 60 lines of dialogue in the whole film, so he's a different Max. But the action and the movie was just an absolute adrenaline-filled thrill ride. Okay, so everybody loved it, including me. I went and saw it at the Chinese theater, and it was just fantastic. So happy. 9 years later, Furiosa comes out. And again, it's George Miller, now 79 years old. And he has made a Mad Max saga film. No Mad Max. He's in it very briefly. It's the story of Furiosa. You can hear my bird in the back. Let's see if he comes. Shuts up. No, he's not shutting up. Okay. You're going to have to deal with that. Actually, yeah, you're going to have to deal with that. It's a very cute bird, by the way. This is the story about Furiosa, now played by Anya Taylor-Joy. And it's all the story of Dr. Dementis, who is the new character played by Chris Hemsworth. And this is a different movie. And it is a story, it's her story. It takes place over the course of many years, when she's a young child, when she's abducted, when she's a teenager, and then when she's an older version of Furiosa, but not all the way up to the version that we start seeing at the beginning of Fury Road. So it's a different movie. And what I've heard from reviewers, like, it's not as good as Fury Road. It's not as action packed. There's no Charlize Theron. There's too much CGI. It's just not as good. Or it's good, not as good. Well, I got to tell you, I thought it was unbelievable. And I think it's my very favorite Mad Max film. Maybe not, maybe just a notch below Road Warrior. I would put this ahead of Fury Road. I think it's better than Fury Road. Why? Because we get a character. We get to know her backstory. We get to know why she is who she is. You also get a sense of the world that is the wasteland. You figure out what the Bullet Farm really is. You figure out Gas Town. You see a Morton Joe, who's played by a different actor, because Hugh Keays-Byrne passed away. He was also the toe cutter in the first film, by the way. And you get a better sense of the world, better sense of all the other characters. And you have Dr. Dementis, you have Dementis, who's played by Chris Hemsworth, and he's just hamming it up in the best way, almost in a Heath Ledger Joker vibe. He's really fun as a villain. He's a great villain. And so you have all these elements. I've heard people say, well, there's no Charlize Theron. Well, you have Anya Taylor-Joy. She's great in this. She's fantastic. Somebody else said there's no big stars. I said, wait a minute. Chris Hemsworth is a big star, probably just as big as Tom Hardy was, so I don't get that. I think all of that is bullshit. I think the reality is, for a lot of these guys, a lot of these fans, they wanted Mad Max. They don't want a girl being the hero. It's as simple as that. I don't want to hear about the CGI. Yes, there's some CGI stuff you kind of go, okay, that wasn't great, but it's minimal. A lot of the CGI is fantastic. The action stuff is fantastic. There's another war rig battle that's incredible. I had a big smile on my face. There's a scene at the Bullet Farm. It's fantastic. I actually was smiling and like laughing and whooping it up. And there were scenes I actually like this. I rarely do that. I'm usually quiet, like I don't even eat my popcorn during the movie. I was totally into it. And my daughter, who saw Fury Road the few nights before, loved this one even more too, because she liked the character development. So the people that talk about, well, this isn't as good, like when I'm leaving the theater, I heard one couple say, well, we got to go watch Fury Road. I can't wait to see it. So they hadn't seen Fury Road. So that was cool to see. There were people clapping at the end of the movie. That's rare nowadays. But there were some people going, well, that was kind of long. Yeah, it's 2.5 hours long. Oh, that was kind of loud. It's very loud, especially in IMAX. If you don't like revving engines and crunching metal, go see Garfield the movie, please. This is not for you. And somebody else said, yeah, it was a little boring at the end. And I was like, what are you fucking watching? Boring. I just don't get it. I don't get today's movie-going crowd. I think what they want is maybe, a more conventional action film that has whatever it has, big explosions at the end and real, heroes that you can sort of identify with or something. But Mad Max was never a conventional film world. It's always been a little left of center. And if you don't embrace that, you don't embrace the weird characters or the weird, language. They call people, Schleglers and Skeg, and there's a guy named Scrotus, and there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. If you don't embrace that world and get into it and you just think, oh, it's kind of weird, then maybe you're going to be off-put by it. But that's exactly what I love about it. It's not conventional. It's different. And shouldn't we have different in big budget action films or big budget films? Maybe Warner Brothers gave George Miller too much money to make a kind of a niche film. Fury Road was a moderate success. It wasn't a smash. It was a moderate success. It was more of a critic's darling, and the fans who love Mad Max ate it up. This is the same sort of thing. I think the fans of Mad Max, a lot of them will eat it up they see it. And some of them maybe have those qualms about, this, what they're talking about. But I think they are expecting a different film, and they shouldn't. I knew going in this is about Furiosa, and frankly, I think her character is way more interesting than Max was in the last movie. That's why they made this. But George Miller wants to make one more called The Wasteland, which is about Mad Max's story from post Thunderdome, before Furiosa, or before Fury Road. I would love to see that. Now, unfortunately, the movie has not done well at the box office, because who knows? Who knows why? People don't go to the movies. It's an R-rated film. It's kind of, it's not a people pleaser in that sense. I mean, a lot of kids won't see this. They'll go see Garfield or Pixar films or whatever. They're not going to spend, $25 IMAX screen, per ticket to see an R-rated violent action film. So maybe they just, the budget was too high. I don't care. I think it's a brilliant movie. I was blown away, and I know how I feel when I see a movie. When I leave, I go, I want to see that again on the big screen. That hasn't happened to me in a long, long time. Part of it was IMAX. It was just this expansive. I felt like I'm watching like kind of a Lawrence of Arabia Mad Max film. It's just so big. And there's also great hints to the Road Warrior. There's some scenes that are reminiscent, or some bits. I go, oh yeah, this is kind of hearkening back to the Road Warrior, which I loved. And there's a character, Praetorian Jack, played by Tom Burke, who is kind of the Mad Max of this movie. And he befriends Furiosa, and they have an interesting relationship. And I thought that was really good. So when people say this movie was disappointing, or it has was boring, or I don't know what the hell they're talking about. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, because I love this filmmaker, I love this world, and I love loud, big action. I just love it. I can put the CGI to the side and say that's fine. I can put bits and pieces that maybe weren't as great as I want them to be to the side. I go, okay, but overall, everything about it, the music, everything about it, the editing was so good. And I think in time, after this movie leaves the theaters and then goes to streaming and then gets on, it will have a long life. And I think it will be regarded as, if not the best Mad Max film, certainly one of the top two. I would put it right there with The Road Warrior. I put Fury Road below it. And I know I'm in the minority there, but that's the way I feel. So I had to talk about Furiosa because, the whole sort of out there in the public's, it's a disappointment. It's not as good. It's disappointing financially. I'm like, man, it's not the way I felt in the theater. And I know how I feel in the theater. I know when I'm watching something and I'm smiling, going, this is exactly what I want to see in a movie like this. And it delivered. And I'm going to see it again. I'm going to pay another $25 to see it at the IMAX in Burbank. I don't care if I'm the only person there. In fact, I want it to be filled, but I'm going to see it one more time. And I might go in there and go, oh, maybe I overrated it. Maybe I went in with low expectations. I don't think so. I thought it was a legitimately great film. So if you take my word for it, go check it out, because I think the movie could use a little love. It's not deserved of the negative stuff that's out there about it, whether it's the reviews or the fact that it's not doing well. It's a fantastic film. George Miller still has it, and I want him to make The Wasteland. I want him to make the last Mad Max film and bring it all together, because this movie gave me answers that I didn't know I needed regarding that world, and I loved that. All right, everybody, I'm off my soapbox. Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. And by the way, Mad Max is in it for about 15 seconds, so you get to see him too. Okay. Was that that wasn't a spoiler? Nah. Anyway, thanks for watching. And I love the movie. What can I say? I had to tell you about it. Okay.